Tottenham vice-captain QT Romero has spoken out about those links between him and the biggest club in the world. Meanwhile, Tottenham have been linked with an Olympian, and Chelsea have decided who they want to replace Conor Gallagher at Stamford Bridge. All this and more in today's daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much once again for tuning in or wherever you're listening. I really appreciate the support. As ever, please do press that like button if you're on YouTube. Press subscribe. I've just got through 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and I'm looking now to get to 20,000. So if you're not a subscriber and you want daily content, kind of starting with Spurs but also going to daily transfer news, please do press that subscribe button. Let's get to 20,000. And also you can become a member. Only £1 a month really helps me make this daily content for you. All the details in the description boxes below. But let's get started. And as I mentioned, Tottenham's vice-captain has been asked by ESPN in South America how he feels about those links with some of the biggest clubs in the world. And specifically, really, it's been Real Madrid, hasn't it, who have been putting out in the press. They're kind of doing the classic Real Madrid thing where they leak to papers like Marca in Spain, saying that Romero might well be interested in coming to Madrid, which is basically them saying, we want to get him through the door and we're going to kind of slowly feed those links into the press and hope that over the next year or so, maybe 2 years, it'll soften up Tottenham Hotspur and eventually they'll be able to get him through the door. Well, QT Romero was asked about this. He said the following: I don't think about other clubs. I respect Tottenham a lot. They always gave me a lot of affection, so I like to play here at Spurs. Let's hope that this year we can win a title. It's my mission. Well, those are amazing words for a Spurs fan because I think Christian Romero is our most gifted footballer at the club at the moment. I think you've got to give props to Fabio Paratici for really pinpointing him when he was on loan at Atalanta, wasn't he? And they got him over to Spurs for what I think is now a steal, kind of upwards of £30 million, but an absolute steal because he is one of the best three centre-halves in the world now. And once we get him back from his having won the Copa America, get him back into training and get him back into the first team as early as possible. It's 2 weeks today that Tottenham play their first game of the Premier League season away at Leicester City. And I know that QT Romero will not have had much training, nor will Mickey van der Ven, for instance, or Rodrigo Bentancur, but I think get them straight back in, especially Romero and van der Ven. And then we can go to Leicester and I don't know, I've been pretty impressed by our pre-season stuff. We've won, obviously, I think 4 of the 5 games, lost the weekend against Bayern Munich, but even in that second half against Bayern Munich, and especially when Lucas Bergvall came on, I thought Tottenham started looking really good. And I, for one, would love to see Romero playing those kind of through-the-lines balls into Bergvall's feet and see what he can do with them because I really love the new boy's creativity and I think he should go straight into that team against Leicester 2 weeks today. Let me know in the comments what you think about what you've seen of Bergvall so far and let me know how important you think Christian Romero is to this Tottenham team. And if he were, in the next few seasons, to go to Real Madrid, what kind of money would it take to get him out of Tottenham Hotspur? What kind of money would Daniel Levy accept? And what kind of money do you think it would take? And bear in mind inflation as well. Top centre-halves, think about it, now going for upwards of £75 million. Virgil van Dijk went to Liverpool a good 4 or 5 years ago now for £75 million. What is Christian Romero worth? He's not just an amazing defender. He's not just an amazing tackler. Not just a brilliant player who reads the game unbelievable and uses aggression so beautifully. But he is also, on the ball, just a top-notch passer. Between the lines, brave footballer, not afraid to take a player on. And let's not forget some of those games last year where he almost single-handedly dragged Spurs over the line by making those runs forward late in games where we were losing, by standing up front and just causing a menace and bringing other players into the game. There are just not that many centre-halves who are clever enough to know when to go, to know when to take a risk, to know how to use that aggression in 50-50 challenges. Sure, he's been sent off a few times, he doesn't always get it right, but let's face it, last season he tempered that beautifully when he'd been given that vice-captaincy role, and I expect that to be the same going into this season. And I really hope we can get him fit for that Leicester game on the first day, and that we can go there, get a win, and then start just as well as we did last season, when 10 games we had 8 wins and 2 draws. And the only thing that stopped us, I think, from having a really brilliant season with at least a top 4 finish was that game against Chelsea where we were overly motivated, overly committed, had 2 men sent off, Another injury to Mickey van der Ven in that game, I think it was. Oh, it was James Maddison who definitely got injured in that game. And that really put the kind of stoppers on our progress. And I think we lost the next 4 league games after that. So I think if we get all our players back and the addition of the new boys, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, and I still think before that first game in 2 weeks' time, we'll have some signings over the line as well. I think we can go to Leicester and get a good result, but I think Romero needs to play in that game. Speaking of signings, Amir Richardson, who's playing for Morocco at the Olympics at the moment, apparently has been closely observed by Tottenham. He is on their list, and a lot of people saying that Richardson is a very good young talent. So good to see we're looking more at young talent as well. Also, according to Fabrizio Romano, in the past week, Spurs have started exploring options for a new right-back for the squad based on the fact that now Emerson Royale's bid has been accepted from AC Milan. And it looks like Royal will finally be joining AC Milan in the next few days. Meanwhile, obviously, big links at the end of last week with Tottenham and Dominic Solanke. And I know a lot of you had very strong opinions on Dominic Solanke. I've been listening to a lot of the podcasts, the Tottenham podcasts that I respect, View from the Lane, The Extra Inch, The Fighting Cock, etc., etc. And I've actually been pretty excited by some of the kind of more tactical experts and how they think Solanke could fit into this Tottenham team. Now, I do understand, and it is subjective, a lot of you fans are very angry at the thought of Solanke coming in. And it's not by no means a given, and that is because actually Bournemouth are insistent that Tottenham are going to have to meet the full £65 million release clause in Solanke's contract if they want to get him over the line. But I do understand that some of you think that is an underwhelming signing and you want someone like Gyökeres to come in from Sporting Lisbon. Well, all I'd say is, having looked into it a little bit, and as I said, listen to those podcasts, Gyökeres and Dominic Solanke obviously have both played in the Championship around similar ages, and Solanke actually scored more goals in the Championship in the same time than Gyökeres did. Now, I know Gyökeres had a brilliant season in Sporting Lisbon last year, 40 goals all competitions, but Solanke scoring 19 goals in the Premier League should not be sniffed at, especially for a club like Bournemouth, kind of mid-table club who had a new manager and only last season started playing that front foot progressive football under Areola. So think about it. Maybe he actually does have the attributes that the data analysts at Tottenham, that the coaches at Tottenham, and that big Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham know is needed for that number 9 in Ange's system. And Ange, I'll be giving you some more quotes from Ange actually later in this episode about how he views the number 9s in his system. And for me, if Ange thinks Solanke is the right player, if the data recruitment team and the analyst, Johan Lange and everyone, thinks he is the right player for the system, then I trust them. I think the signings under Ange Postecoglou so far have been really good. The signings under Lang, I think, have been very forward-thinking, exciting and young. And I, for one, just trust the system at the moment. There seems like there's a project that everyone is following. And therefore, I just don't think we should throw our toys out the pram just because it's not a foreign signing. The fact that we're looking at English signings, I actually think is a positive. We need players who are Premier League proven so that they can go straight into the squad and we can hit the ground running. As I mentioned, Ange Postecoglou has done a big interview with Alistair Gold. Make sure you follow Alistair Gold everywhere. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and make sure you follow him on Twitter if you're not already, because he's doing some amazing work at the moment and is a really good guy. In this interview, Ange confirmed that he does plan to sign a new striker for Spurs. He said the following: "At Celtic, I had Kyogo, who was a sort of out-and-out number 9, and in Japan, I've always had a striker. It just depends. Like last year, we had to be creative, it's fair to say. You know, but if Harry would have stayed, I definitely would have used him." Now, in terms of just breaking into those quotes a little bit, into that interview, in terms of him talking about how last year we had to be creative, I think what he's saying is that he doesn't envision either Son Heung-min or Richarlison as an out-and-out striker. And that fits with everything I've heard from my Everton fan friends and family, who said that Richarlison is best playing off the left. And I think we all kind of have started to agree, and Sonny has done an interview this summer where he's talked about the fact that he sees left wing as his most natural position too. Now, is there a possibility that we keep Richarlison and play and use him as cover for Sonny on the left-hand side, and then we get in someone like Solanke as the 9, and therefore we've got Richarlison, Son, Solanke, say, and Werner, who can all play either left wing or in the 9. That is what I call good squad rotation options, and especially in a season where we have Europa League to play as well. Anyway, Ange Postecoglou went in when asked about strikers. He said, "So I think for us, what's more important is the type of striker we get. You know, we play a certain way. We demand certain things from a physical perspective, from the technical aspect of it, that's going to be a striker that fits the mould. it is still the area of the park we're really probably the thinnest at the moment. Obviously, that's a focus for us. Irrespective of the approach, I like to think I've always been pretty clear on what I want. I've had success for the most part in my career with transfers, and I thought last year's window was excellent. When I was at Celtic or at Yokohama, there's still guys that dominate the league that I brought to the league. So I think what hopefully minimises us getting it wrong is that I'm really clear on what I want. Now, it kind of helps with Johan and his team that they've got some more information around that. But it still comes down to, I think, the most successful models are about having a real clear idea about what you're after. You know, because if it's just a left winger you want, for instance, there are thousands of them, all very, very good. But it's about finding one that's going to fit into the way you want to do things. Now, he then went on to give a quote that I think has been really taken out of context by a lot of Spurs fans over the past few days. He said the following: "I don't think it'll all get done in this window. I've never believed in quick fixes, and I think I said that it would have been great if we could have got our business done already. But I've always maintained a discipline not to go off and sort of get too emotional through these times." So, the reason I said that I think this has been taken out of context is that line, "I don't think it'll all get done this window." I think what a lot of fans have read into that is the thought that maybe Spurs won't get any signings done this window. And that, for me, is not what Ange Postecoglou is saying at all. I think he's talking about the entire squad change, the difficult rebirth, if you like, that Pochettino talked about a number of years ago. The idea that Ange could have a squad full of players who have the attributes that he needs for his style of football. I think he's saying it's going to take 2 or 3 windows before he has the entire squad that he wants. And I think that makes sense. One thing it's really important for us all to remember as well, Spurs now haven't been in the Champions League for 2 seasons in a row. So that loses us minimum £100 million. It does. So that's off the budget. So it's just not going to be easy. While the prices are high, and while teams are also struggling to get players in themselves because of PSR and stuff like that, Tottenham are being affected as well. But I still think we will get our marquee signing, at least one marquee signing, through the door before the end of the window, and maybe even before the start of the Premier League season. Ange went on to say this: "It's a difficult time. This is the part of the season where I've probably got the least control over decisions, and I've learnt to stay disciplined and make sure that we do what we set out to do. We've added the 2 young guys, but I also think there's been growth from the other guys from last year, which naturally makes us stronger. But yeah, we obviously have still got a hand in this window, but I think we'll go beyond this window. This wasn't just tinkering around the edges when I took over. It needed, a big shift from where it was. I was just thinking about last year's pre-season. I reckon 50% of the people who are on that tour are probably not here now. So we've already done a hell of a lot, and we don't need to do as much. But I still think because it's not just about having success one year, what you're trying to build is hopefully another cycle of success. And I think that'll take a bit longer. So that's what I'm talking about there. He's going into really what he's talking about, which is longer term success, needing the squad full of the attributes that he wants for his system, and really not taking any risks, not just because the first one is difficult to get through the door, going to your 7th or 8th choice, making sure that the players you bring in are going to be the right players. And I trust that Ange Postecoglou is not going to just get annoyed that no one has come in yet. I think he's going to wait for the right players, and I think that is what Johan Lange is working on, and that's why it's taking a bit of time. Like I said, though, I do understand that some of you getting very upset at the slowness of getting any marquee players in, but I still feel confident that someone of the ilk of an Eza, of a Neto, of a Tony or a Solanke or a Gyökeres will come in, and I think maybe we'll get at least 2 of them. As Ange mentioned there, a lot of it has also been about getting the deadwood out. 50% of last year's pre-season tour not at the club anymore. That is a lot of players who Ange didn't think fitted the system, who have now moved on. A lot of wages off the books. A little bit of transfer budget money in here and there as well to add to what we've already got to spend. So I think it will come good, but it just involves a bit more patience. Ange was also asked during this interview by Ali Gold about his thoughts on Jed Spence, who came on again at the weekend in our defeat against Bayern Munich and did okay. Actually started, in a unfamiliar left-back role for him. It took him a little time to get into the game, but I thought overall he did pretty well. And he certainly benefited from this preseason tour out in Asia with the players, getting his fitness up and understanding how the system works. Ange said the following about Jed Spence. I think with Jed, for me, we got him back into preseason and we're judging him on his merits. He's a Tottenham player. To be fair to him, I think he's been very, very good for us in this preseason in terms of the way he's trained and his general attitude. But a lot of these things are in the players' hands themselves. They kind of decide their own future in many respects, and I think Jed is in that boat. I think there's an opportunity for him here, for sure. Thinking about building a squad, he would definitely be somebody who could contribute with the attributes that he has. I thought last year there was a chance, but it didn't quite work out. For those kind of things, I think sometimes players really wait for direction when they can really take control of their own direction. As you see right now, he's been very good pre-season. He's been very good on the tour. He's impressed all the coaches, not just myself. For some of them, it's the first time they've worked with him and they've all been really impressed with him. Maybe he's learned a couple of things over the last few years about himself, and hopefully we can sort of bear the fruit of that. I think they are such exciting quotes from Ange Postecoglou. What he's saying is that if Jed Spence wants it, if he has the desire for it, if he wants to be a squad player at Tottenham, if he can be the first reserve for Pedro Porro, because let's face it, Pedro Porro is an unbelievable fullback and again, scored an absolute master blaster at the weekend against Bayern Munich. Just given time in that kind of half space between the halfway line and the opposing 18-yard line, drove at the Bayern Munich back four, was given a little time, stuck his laces through it, middle top corner. Beautiful stuff. So it's going to be hard for Jed Spence to oust Pedro Porro as our starting right back in the Premier League, but there's going to be Europa League games, there's going to be cup games, and there'll be suspensions and injuries to Porro. And what I'm saying is, Jed Spence has been given an opportunity here by Ange Postecoglou. He's been told personally, clearly, at the training ground, but also in the press, you have impressed us. You are doing it right this time. So stick at it and you will get your chances. And I think we all know that Spence has the physical attributes and the stylistic attributes to be a brilliant fullback. And we've seen him do it, certainly at Nottingham Forest anyway. So let's keep his attitude high and hopefully we'll see him in a Spurs shirt more. Not just in the Bayern Munich friendly at the weekend, but also maybe in the squad for that first game against Leicester in 2 weeks' time. Guys, before I go on to some more other Premier League transfer rumours and news, please once again do press that like button if you haven't already. Helps it get up the algorithm and seen by more people. And do press subscribe. If you're not a subscriber already, I bring you daily content that starts with my team, Tottenham Hotspur, but also goes into other Premier League transfer news over this summer, so we can keep abreast of everything that's going on in the best league in the world. Also, you can become a member, only £1 a month for you, but really helps me make this daily content. All the details in the description box below. So let's move on to more Premier League transfer news, starting off at Manchester United. And back end of last week, they submitted an offer to sign Matthias de Ligt and Noussair Mazraoui to Bayern Munich. The opening bid has been rejected, but according to David Ornstein, who make sure you follow if you don't already, because he is one of the transfer news dons, the talks are ongoing. And in fact, rumours over the weekend say that Mazraoui will join Manchester United and the Moroccan right-back will take a private flight to Manchester in the next few days for his medical. The de Ligt one is a little more difficult because Manchester United currently refusing to meet the money that Bayern Munich insist for the Dutch centre-half. I think what's happening at Manchester United at the moment is that with Sir Jim Ratcliffe having come in and Ineos and Dave Brailsford, etc., they are trying to change the culture that is opposition clubs, other clubs in the world, knowing that Man United will overpay on transfer fees when they start to panic. And Jim Ratcliffe and Dave Brailsford are trying to stop that. So with de Ligt, I think Bayern Munich are saying, well, we want this much, maybe £50 million, £55 million, and Manchester United saying, no, we're not going to overspend. If you give him to us for 40 or something like that, then we'll go there. But if not, we will move to other options. Across the other side of Manchester, Atletico Madrid are in discussions with City for Julian Alvarez, but also, according to The Athletic and The Mirror, Arsenal are also considering going to the well at Manchester City again. Mikel Arteta going once again to his former club to try and sign one of their reserve players. He did it with Zinchenko. He did it with Gabriel Jesus, and now looking potentially at Julian Alvarez. I know there are a lot of Spurs fans in my comments who think we should be going into Julian Alvarez as well. But Man City, I think they're looking for maybe £80 million for him. Is that a deal you could see Arsenal doing? If you're a Spurs fan, are you saying, let's not get any of the other players we've been linked with as the 9. No Tony, no Gyökeres, no Solanke. Let's go for Alvarez. My worries about that would be, is he a natural number 9 in terms of hold-up play? He's quite diminutive, isn't he, Julian Alvarez? He's undoubtedly a brilliant finisher, but is he the right number 9 for Ange Postecoglou's system? I don't know. Maybe that's why we're not hearing big rumours about Spurs and Alvarez at the moment. Still at Man City, the deal apparently between Ederson and Al Ittihad in Saudi Arabia is now off, and Ederson will stay at Manchester City this season. Al Ittihad have now decided to buy Rakovic from Mallorca instead. I think that is, as a Tottenham fan, arguably, I don't know, I think it's good news for Man City is basically what I'm saying. And I did worry that if Ederson left Man City, it might leave the door open for Arsenal to easily win the Premier League next season. I think Ederson is a brilliant, brilliant goalkeeper, one of the top 2 goalkeepers in the world, alongside Alisson at Liverpool. And I don't know whether Tottenham are ready to make a Premier League challenge yet at the moment. It seems like maybe next season is more likely. So I feared that without Ederson, Arsenal would have a free run at the Premier League, because goalkeeping is such a huge position when it comes to winning as many games as you can. I think Ederson has saved them so many times. I know Man City fans like Ortega. He did a good job at the back end of last season, but I personally don't think he is nearly as good as Ederson. Over to Anfield now. Liverpool are ready to complete a £13 million deal for Lanús with Lanús, the club, for Argentina youth international left-back Julio Sola. Apparently they view him as a long-term replacement for Andy Robertson. As I mentioned at the top, Conor Gallagher has now verbally agreed to go to Atletico Madrid and play for Diego Simeone. That is a Fabrizio Romano. Here we go. Formal steps still to go. It'll be a 5-year deal, and La Liga's record fee paid this summer, €40 million to Chelsea. And that shows how little money there is in Spanish football as well. And that's something that's really affected Tottenham over the last few years, how little money there is in other foreign leagues. Because if you remember, maybe back 10 years ago, Tottenham were really able to get big money for their squad players when they weren't in the team. But that is not happening anymore. Apparently, 2 Premier League clubs did try to enter the race to sign Conor Gallagher. You've got to assume one of those was Spurs, maybe the other one Aston Villa. But the player did not consider their offers. He didn't want to join another English Premier League club. Meanwhile, Chelsea, in looking to replace Conor Gallagher, who all reports this weekend said that Enzo Maresca, their new manager, did not think that Conor Gallagher would fit the style of play that he wanted to play. But they do like Matt O'Reilly from Celtic, who Tottenham were linked with. He's on Tottenham's list. We were linked with him back in January. He's 23 years old, and if Conor Gallagher does, as expected, join Atletico Madrid, Chelsea will make a bid for the Celtic midfielder. Over to Newcastle. Newcastle, I'm sure you've heard this weekend, they are attempting to sign Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace and have begun negotiating a deal that could bring the centre-half to Eddie Howe's Geordies. Palace have told Newcastle they want at least £50 million up front, as well as add-ons for Gay. He did brilliantly in the Euros, didn't he, Mark Gay? Really stepped into the breach with England's injuries. I thought he was incredibly impressive. I'd love to see him at Spurs, but I don't think Tottenham are going to go anywhere near £50 million for what could potentially be a backup centre-half. And Newcastle, well, they have the money. They got, in the end, to their PSR deadline without falling foul of that. And you can see Gay being a good signing for Newcastle if they get that over the line. Over to West Ham. They are closing in on the Niklas Füllkrug deal with Borussia Dortmund. 31 years old. They're paying about €27 million plus €5 million in add-ons. Just shows how few number 9s there are out there, because a lot of West Ham fans are not happy at all with that. However, they've also, West Ham, booked a medical for Guido Rodriguez to join the club. He's available as a free agent after leaving Betis, and he was due to go to Barcelona, but that's a deal that collapsed back in June. So West Ham getting a talented player in from Spain there, as well as a big German number 9. Meanwhile, Southampton are now hopeful they'll be able to keep hold of Kyle Walker-Peters, who is also interesting Spurs, despite the fact that earlier this summer West Ham had a bid accepted for him. Also, Arsenal, going back over to South London, they're interested in Brighton's 22-year-old Brazilian forward, João Pedro. Very exciting player. He played really well against Spurs last season. He would provide really good competition to the likes of Martinelli and Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. Meanwhile, Arsenal have asked for £30 million plus a sell-on clause from anyone who wants to sign Eddie Nketiah. Marseille are at the top of the list for Nketiah, but I wonder if £30 million will be too much for a French club to pay. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to today's daily Premier League transfer news. Press that like button. Let's get as many likes as we can. Also, like I said, press subscribe. Heading for 20,000 subscribers. Want to get there as quickly as possible. If you like daily content about Spurs and about transfers from all around the Premier League, press subscribe. Join the community, and thank you so much. Also, you can become a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. Have a great rest of your Monday. Cheers.